Hi everyone, how are you doing today? Thank you very much for joining today. Welcome everyone to another session of the Global Legal Tech Hub Tables. In today's event, we're going to talk about the digitalization of the legal sector from the UK perspective. We will start with a brief overview of the legal tech status in the UK by Charlotte Cederquist, Head of the Business Development at the Law Society of Scotland. And right after that, we will jump onto the round table. At the end, we'll leave around 10 minutes for a Q&A. But if anyone has any doubts in between the session, you can write it in the chat, and later on we will review those questions. So if you're ready, Charlotte, whenever you want, please start.
Okie dokie. Thank you very much, Alejandro. So my name is Charlotte Cityfist. I am Head of Business Development at the Law Society of Scotland, and I'm really pleased to be here this early evening, I think it is. And I should give you a little bit of an overview of legal tech in Scotland and the UK. It will be a bit of a Scottish perspective, but I will try and cover the whole of the UK. And then I'm sure there'll be some questions coming up in the roundtable. I should highlight that I'm not a techie. Thankfully, I'm joined by some, so you can maybe ask them the harder questions later on. I'm sure they're much more well qualified than I am. But as I say, to give you a bit of an overview, as part of my role at the Society, I manage what we call our Law Scot Tech programme. And that's a programme that aims to stimulate legal technology development and innovation, and that in the end should bring practical benefit both for firms but also for clients and the public overall. I'll explain a little bit more about the programme in a minute, just because I'm conscious we've got an international audience. Just to explain the Law Society's role, we have separate law societies in the UK for Scotland, England and Wales, and Northern Ireland. So as I say, I represent the Scottish one, and we have about 12,000 solicitors who are registered with ourselves. We also have accredited paralegals as part of our membership. And obviously they vary in size. We have got everything from sole practitioners to what we call high street firms who do a variety of work, and then we have bigger firms, some who are just in Scotland, some who cross over between UK territory, and also, of course, global firms. And in terms of technology and innovation, their needs and their level of innovation obviously varies greatly as well. So that was something that we were very aware of when we launched our programme back in 2018. And obviously, we would have to adapt how we approach this for those different needs. We also have in-house lawyers, of course, who work in big organizations and corporate departments. And I think looking back 3 years ago, I don't really think that it's probably fair to say we weren't really sure what we were going to do with this programme either, because we had a lot of technology activity within the society, but it had never been sort of coordinated into one programme. We were also aware of, obviously, lots of legal tech incubators. We didn't really want to go down that route to sort of compete with them. We didn't think that that was where our strength was. So what we decided to do was actually model what we do on the fintech sector, because the fintech sector in the UK, I think it's fair to say that they are quite ahead of legal in terms of what they've done when it comes to innovation and development. So thankfully, FinTech Scotland, headed up by Stephen Ingledew, were really helpful to us and shared their experience and how they've been working on things. So we have pretty much mirrored their approach in terms of a kind of collaborative model where we are a part of the conversation between the sector, technology companies, industry, academics, and some of the key stakeholders like the Land Registry, Register of Scotland, Court Service, etc. So we were also obviously keen to get members' views on legal tech and what that meant and what would be helpful for them. So the first thing we did back in 2018 was go out to speak to members to get their views. And actually, we stayed away from talking too much about technology when we did that first approach, mainly so that we could get really sort of a wider range of views, because for some solicitors, technology might be a bit of a barrier. They might not feel it's relevant for them. And we wanted to flush out what were the real issues for legal firms. What keeps them up at night? What keeps them from being efficient? What are the processes in various practice areas, or just for their businesses? So as expected, we did that through a number of ways. We were out speaking to them, we did surveys, etc. And we got an awful lot of views and comments, but we could distinguish sort of 3 themes. So I just thought I'd go over those themes because they have influenced what we have done and some of what we think are the key topics in the legal sector in the UK just now. So the first one, unsurprisingly to us, was compliance. Compliance and technology, there's a real crossover there. And from our point of view, obviously, as a regulator, it's really important that this is an area where development is happening. So anti-money laundering is an example of that type of activity, and it takes up an awful lot of time for firms. And the more streamlined the processes are around that, the better. So obviously pleased to have Callum here from Amiqus tonight, because he'll be able to talk more about what they offer in terms of their AML system, where they specialize. But there are other areas where actually compliance and technology crossover that are less obvious. So I think we have someone from another company called LinkApp on here tonight, and that's a communication tool, and that's maybe not where you would think there's the most straightforward crossover with regulation. But actually, we see that most complaints against lawyers originate in poor communication. It can be as simple as just poor communication from the very start between a solicitor and a client, which then becomes a much bigger problem and can end up being a complaint. So streamlining that is really important as well. The other really big issue that we've been looking at, and that comes up with our members a lot, is data management. And that's a huge area because it ranges from everything from how you access data, how you search your data. And we have been looking at whether you should have legal data standards to ease that process around that. The other thing that we know is that for a lot of big law firms, getting access to data even for innovation and for testing can be really difficult. Because this is such a big area, we have decided to join up with LawTech UK in our work on this, because ultimately there's no point creating a standard just for Scotland if it comes to data. So at the very least, we're wanting to look at the UK perspective, if not an international perspective. And I'll be keen to hear from people on the call later on when we're doing the roundtable, whether that's something that comes up in your jurisdiction. Closely related to the data issue is around integration and interoperability of system, another big issue for a lot of firms. This is an area where we've actually seen a lot of improvement over the past 2 years. More systems are using APIs, which means that they can integrate with each other and data can flow between different systems. I know both Amiqus and LinkApp integrate with quite a few of the practice management systems in the UK, which makes that a lot easier for firms to run these and at the same time as doing their onboarding and running a case, they can make sure that they are ticking compliance boxes. So that's a really positive development. In the last 18 months, we've also seen a lot more companies integrating electronic signatures out of necessity, because it's not been possible to sign documents, obviously, when we've been working remotely. So that whole process around digital signatures has been speeded up. And that's an area that we've done a lot of work on as well. As well as those 3 sort of key themes that we will continue to work on. Another big aspect is the education side of things. So obviously, as we are getting new lawyers into the profession, it's important that they have a good understanding of technology. And we've been working closely with all the universities and the providers of what's called the LLB and the diploma courses to make sure that technology is covered in those. Interestingly, the feedback that we're getting from big firms who are taking on trainees and new lawyers is that while you would expect younger generation to be much more tech savvy, perhaps than if you're generalizing, than older generations, it's quite niche what they're good at. So new lawyers are often very good at social media, video presentations, and things like that, but they're not necessarily strong in the more sort of slightly duller office packages. And while they might have some understanding of technical processes, it's not given that they're any better than the established solicitor. So from our point of view, it's really important to get that tech understanding when you're becoming a solicitor and integrating it into their way of thinking. So while for sure, they don't need to be able to code as a lawyer, but you need to understand why coding could help solve problems in legal processes. So as well as working with the universities on that, we have also realized that we do need some people who are actual legal tech experts. And there's quite often a gap there. So while you have obviously, particularly in large firms, you will have an IT department, their job is often more around kind of making sure that patching is done and, cybersecurity and those sort of things. They may not necessarily be the legal innovators. So we are seeing more roles obviously coming out, like legal process engineers, legal analysts, and legal technologists. And that's likely to grow. So we were keen to find some sort of way of accrediting those people to have a professional status. So we've created something called the Accredited Legal Technologist status. So that's open to both solicitors and those that work in technology. So you don't have to necessarily be a solicitor, but you need to have an understanding of legal tech. So it's a relatively small group of people still, but we feel that that's something that will grow and will be really fundamental to helping firms develop innovations within their own businesses. I haven't really spoken about the past 18 months in terms of how that has impacted legal tech, because I think that's going to come up perhaps when we're talking in the roundtable. But of course, we have seen, as everyone else has, that innovation has speeded up through necessity. And I think there has been some great developments, like I mentioned earlier, with digital signatures, and we've had some great innovation from both Registries of Scotland and Land Registry in terms of property transactions. And I think we can continue to build on that. I think there are some things that perhaps have happened quite fast that we now have time to sort of pause a little bit and see how we best want to continue with, for example, around remote court work, etc. Where are the benefits and where are the drawbacks, and how should it be used in terms of remote court sessions, etc. So that's really a very brief whistle-stop tour of our work in Law and Tech. I'd invite you all to have a look at our web pages. I can share them in the chat once I come off here, and we can perhaps also send some links and things, both to what we have done in terms of resources, and also Law Tech UK's website, where there's information about things like their sandbox and some other great initiatives that you might be interested in. But I'm conscious that it's meant to be a discussion tonight, so keen to open up to the rest of the companies and then to the various chats that we're going to have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Charlotte, for your presentation. Yeah, let's later. I have a couple of questions for you, maybe during the discussion. Before moving on to the discussion, I would like the people listening to know each of the projects that we have here. So each one of you is going to have 1 minute to pitch your company. First of all, let's start. Maybe Molly. Molly, are you there?
I am. Hello.
Hi. Molly McGregor is customer specialist at the Juralio. Can you explain us or pitch your Juralio for the rest of us?
Yes, of course. So yeah, I'm customer success specialist at Juralio. We are a collaboration tool focused on legal matter management, based in Scotland. And we're ISO 27 certified, and we're hosted on AWS. And I thought, rather than me explaining, I'll just screen share quickly a video that basically summarizes in a bit more of a visual way what Juralio actually does and how it helps legal teams. So let me just, it's not allowing me. Okay, I can't screen share right now, and I'm not quite sure why. Oh, here we go. Can we all see this here yet? Before I play it.
Yes.
If you're involved in legal work, chances are you sometimes feel overloaded by all those emails, documents, and calls. You also need to plan ahead, do the work, and report to different people. That's why we developed Juralio. Juralio helps you express your legal work visually as maps. It helps you plot your own course and collaborate with others. It doesn't force you down a rigid path. You remain in charge of what happens when and how to adapt to the unexpected. Structure, but with fluidity. It cuts down on the reporting burden because it helps everyone see what's going on. You can easily share maps with people outside your organisation and turn them into templates for reuse. Juralio can cope with any level of complexity, but remains simple to use. Actually, we're a bit obsessed with making it easy and a delight to work with. Oh, and did we mention that we play well with others? You can integrate Juralio with other systems. Juralio, legal software that people actually want to use.
So that's a bit more of a visual description of Juralio, but yeah, we mainly help legal teams manage their legal work in a structured but fluid way.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Molly. Our next speaker or pitcher is going to be Callum Murray, CEO of Amiqus. Callum, are you here?
Yeah, thanks, Alejandro. Yeah, that's
Excellent.
right. What Amiqus does is helps make legal help, advice, products and services more accessible for people. So fundamentally, what we aim to do is make it really simple for people to access legal services. And we established that to do that, we should make it really fast and easy and digital to manage all of the compliance aspects for clients. Typically, it's a paper-based process, which is time-consuming, expensive for everyone involved, and complex. So we've helped to make that simple. We now work with around 300 law firms, as well as people across lots of different sectors. So we make it really simple for your client to engage and manage the anti-money laundering process, and then really simple for your teams internally to manage that and do it at scale.
Excellent, Callum. Thank you very much. Our next project is going to be RegTick, and we have here Gerry, Lyons, and Gerry Murtagh, who is going to pitch the company.
I drew the short straw today, so it will be me. So, hi there, folks. My name's Gerry Lyons. I'm CEO of RegTick. That's www.regtick.com. And may I say what a pleasure it is to get the opportunity to speak to you all today about legal tech in the UK and what we're doing about it at RegTick. My co-founding partner, Gerry, has over 20 years experience in the City of London in regulatory and compliance projects. For myself, I'm a retired Scotland Yard fraud squad officer before going to the dark side of law completely. So at RegTick, we have developed a platform that can address some of the key challenges that the sector is facing. The platform is an intuitive platform that simplifies the management of regulatory compliance functions, helping institutions to reduce their costs, to improve control and collaboration, and to evidence their compliance with ever-changing regulations. The RegTick platform creates a new, wider compliance ecosystem by seamlessly but securely collaborating across existing and emerging infrastructure. RegTick is built, like some other platforms, on RESTful APIs, so it doesn't require the replacement of any existing IT infrastructure. We come with out-of-the-box workflows, but we can also be easily configured to manage any of your specific workflows. So at RegTick, we have an ambitious vision to change how organizations do compliance by taking the complexity out of compliance. That's RegTick.
Thank you very much, Gerry.
No problem.
The last one is James Pearson. James, are you there? From the Link app. I think James is missing, maybe. We should jump directly to the questions there. Let's see who is going to break the ice. Let's start with you, Gerry. Has the COVID-19 affected your business positively or negatively?
Quite the contrary. It's actually been incredibly positive for us. And COVID's been something of a burning platform. It's sort of forced a previously reluctant sector to embrace remote working, for instance, as really never before. Our platform facilitates that. It facilitates the remote working of staff, but also what we've noticed to be a very important and increasing aspect of the legal work is the ability to be transparent and to have transparent dialogue with your clients. So what COVID has done for us is it's really caused people to focus on how they can embrace digital technology to improve their client offerings.
Anyway, anyone else positively affected by COVID-19? Callum?
Yeah, we had both scenarios initially. We work a lot with solicitor estate agents, so buying and selling of property, that's a big area for us. And initially it completely stopped. So for a short period, there was no activity at all, and we had lots and lots of clients who were in trouble. So initially it looked quite difficult, and then quite quickly it turned around and became very, very busy. So there was an initial downturn for us of about 70%, just switched off over the space of a week, which was quite interesting to see on all our charts and our stats. Everything went right to the floor, and we made the decision to support all of our clients and turn off all of our billing and subscription and say, you know, when things return, we'll still be here. And we decided to keep all of our team fully employed. So in the UK, there was a furlough scheme where people were asked to stay at home and they could be paid, but we decided to keep everyone working effectively, and we'll see this through to the end. And then maybe a few months later, everything turned around and it was very busy. And we ended up doing a lot of work for the National Health Service, which we didn't expect. But that was to do with the vetting. We do vetting of our pre-employment checks for solicitors. So are they fit and proper to practice as part of the compliance process? We plug into data sources to help that. And as a side kind of result of COVID, we were able to help the NHS to manage a very high volume of people who had to be vetted to come back to work to support the vaccination programme. So it was quite a mixed experience for us. Initially very bad, and then it turned itself around and we were able to do some good.
Molly, what was your experience during those difficult days?
Yeah, I'd say although everyone was pushed indoors, it was actually a positive experience for the company because it gave that awareness to legal teams who maybe didn't think they needed to use a lot of technology before. It also allowed people to go online and communicate better through technology as well. So it really brought that awareness of how technology can make lives a bit easier, and even when you're working from remote places, you can still effectively get on with your working days. So definitely a positive aspect of COVID for us.
Great. If you could, any of you, I mean, imagine what would be the number one problem that your company solves? Just choose, pick one. What would be?
Well, I'll have a run at that. Maybe if I can turn your question around slightly and ask you, what's the single point of truth within your organization? Do you have different platforms reporting and managing on different topics? You know, can you allow your clients access to various aspects of your system real time to see how their work is being done? So the real problem that our platform actually solves is that transparent real-time provision of data, and providing a product that it becomes that single point of truth. Within any institution, you may have a number of different systems all doing different things, reporting on different aspects. What RegTick does is it sits on the top and pulls its feed from all of those different platforms. So it quickly establishes itself as that single point of truth, that one place where you can go and get the data that you really need, rather than having to search all around all the infrastructure.
Good. Would you say like it increases security for the client then?
Well, what we've done is we've used the platform, for instance, in the remediation of LIBOR contracts, which is a very legalistic, you know, quite a complicated process. But what the law firm that used the platform were actually able to do was permit the client, the banking client, access to the platform to be able to actually see real time exactly where their portfolio of contracts sat. So what that did was it actually significantly cut the amount of time that the law firm had to spend in answering inquiries to their client, because the client could just log in and see for themselves. But it also actually engendered a real superior feeling of trust between the law firm and its client, because everything was open accounted. If you want to see where we've got, just log on and have a look. So that transparency is a core theme to the platform.
Good. And what would it be, Callum, in your case for Amiqus?
Probably the key thing for us is providing that repeatable process for law firms to manage the onboarding aspect for clients. So to be able to engage with a client securely and simply, but make that valuable so that when the client returns, it's possible for them to access different products or services. So it's really important that it's possible for law firms to work digitally and change the way that they work and how they think. So overall, really we're helping the individual to access the legal services, but similarly making sure it's really simple and repeatable for the law firm to engage with clients at high volume, which often is really challenging because of the volume of tasks that people have to do when they consider money laundering or anti-money laundering. There's a lot of different processes and workflows involved in it. So making that complexity really simple is quite challenging.
Talking about making something complex simple, Molly, in your case at Juralio, what would be the number one pain that your company solves?
Yeah, so like you say, we're focused on making complex legal matters quite simplistic and being able to communicate that. So I would say probably communication to both clients and other legal teams, just being able to cross communicate those matters and break down structures that might be very specified to a specific type of legal work, but just have that simplistic overview that everybody can understand. And even though it is very complex work, they'll have that visibility into how the legal teams are working real time. So it just increases communication, I would say.
Sometimes I hear from the legal sector that at the end of the day, lawyers are not good at buying, or because they are good at selling. And maybe there's a lot of vendors out there, and it's complicated for them to choose which one. In your case, why you? Why, now that you have some lawyers here, potential buyers, why you? Why your company?
I would say for Juralio, it's about usability. So we aim to make everything very simplistic, and being able to break down complex matters can be difficult within any sort of platform, whether that's spreadsheets, being able to understand the different subtasks that come from a certain task, and deadlines, who might need to handle certain cases. So having that usability, that easy interface, that's really something that sets us apart, because we have heard that there's a lot of management potentially tools out there, but yeah, they're not easy to pick up. So usability is really a key factor, especially within the legal sector. And being able to pick up a technology and have that used within every sector within the firm, and not just one specified individual that is trained on it, and then that's it basically. So yeah, usability is definitely something that sets Juralio apart.
Mm-hmm. Callum, why you? Why do you think your company is relevant in today's legal sector?
Good question. There are so many people do what we do, or do similarly what we do. We've found that once we win a new client, they stay with us, and they don't really leave. Like we have a very, very low churn rate in our product, but we're continually investing into the product. We've got an excellent team who listen to our users, so we understand closely the requirements from a regulatory perspective and interpret those into the product. So we're always investing into what we do, and effectively provide a great service. So when we provide a great service, do what is expected of, we don't overpromise. We do a range of tasks, and we do that very well, and we build trust with the regulators, with our clients, and we now, I think, have established an opportunity in the market where we've moved from and worked with legal very closely for the last 4 or 5 years, but as a result, people trust their solicitor. Like the solicitor brand, certainly in the UK, is very strong, and people do engage with that message. So the idea now that we've invested in, and we continue to invest into the legal profession to serve their requirements, that served us very well across other areas, because if it's good enough and it's trusted enough and it's rigorous and robust enough from a data governance perspective for your law firm, then it's good enough for many other scenarios and use cases. So we really focus a lot on having a trusted relationship with our clients.
Great. Hi, James Pearson, you join us. How are you?
Yeah, sorry about that. A few technical problems at the beginning. I seem to have joined as a delegate, so
don't worry.
I was watching from a distance.
Do you want to pitch for 1 minute your company? What's the link up?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, my name's James. I'm with the Link App, and we're a Manchester-based legal tech firm. The Link App is a full-service digital onboarding and communications platform, and it can be used throughout a law firm on any case or any matter type. And what we're ultimately looking to do is provide an improved client experience, I think is the best way of putting that, and providing a more efficient process from case opening to case completion. So we enable law firms to progress cases faster, and as I say, with better communication, but also with some transparency and visibility. And when you compare that to traditional platforms like email and the dreaded telephone calls, but with the Link App, 20% of all of our notifications, they're actually read in less than 60 seconds, and 52% of our notifications are read in 20 minutes, which compared to traditional communications, it's actually quite staggering at how fast clients actually respond to law firms through our platform. The link app in itself and the platform gives law firms and clients the ability to communicate on any device at any time from anywhere. You know, we work on any type of device, whether it's Android, iOS, laptops, desktops, even smartwatches. But from a client perspective, we provide them with more transparency and clear updates on the status of their case. And you can add to that the ability to instantly message and provide documents, all of which will be in a secure and encrypted platform. So we provide a much safer alternative to email. And by using and utilizing our features with clients, we can, on average, reduce the number of incoming calls by 34%. So reducing those dreaded phone calls from clients asking for updates and chasing activity, etc. The link app gives clients the ability to see what's happening on their case at the touch of their fingertips. But ultimately, the link app wants to transform the client experience through the use of smart technology.
Great, thank you, James. Maybe Gary or Gerry, do you want to jump into the last question?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Why you?
Hi. Yeah, I mean, why are we relevant today? We're about compliance and we're about getting it right. What we've been going for about half an hour now. Well, in the UK, that means the FCA have fined financial institutions about $150,000 since we've been chatting. It's running about $10,000 every 2 minutes at the moment. So what our platform is about and why we're relevant is we're built by practitioners for practitioners. We've got a huge amount of specific domain experience about what a platform needs to do to be relevant. I mean, today's organizations are facing ever increasing breadth and depth of regulations. They're very complex, demanding, and expensive to comply with. So where we sit is we sit in that sweet spot of adopting what you've already got and then complementing it with a system that allows the management to drill down on a very fine, granular basis to see what the work is being done. But then uniquely within the platform, what our platform actually does is it date stamps and time logs all the work that has been done. So say, for instance, you are remediating a contract and you have reached out to the counterparty and they didn't reply. What you've then got trapped within the platform is an ability for, and say the regulator comes in 5-6 years' time and says, what happened there? You just simply go back to the platform, press print, and it's date stamped and auto-logged so they can see exactly everything that was being done. So that's probably one of our sort of USPs.
Okay. Any volunteer for the next question? There is a common fear that technology is going to get rid of lawyers. What is your opinion on that?
I've got to have a run at that one. Listen, the demise of the legal profession, it's long been foretold, but I mean, I just can't see that. Does the sector have to adapt? Of course it does, but then it always has adapted. It's embraced technologies and different changes. You know, I mean, look at the advances that are being made in terms of digital courts, digital dispute resolution, all those types of areas. I mean, I certainly don't see technology as a threat to the legal profession. I mean, let's not forget, what does new technology do? It creates new opportunities to do a job that your client needs doing. We shouldn't be worried about it. We should embrace it.
Yep. In fact, James, I was thinking Facebook recently launched the Facebook glasses. Do you see this as a new service for clients, maybe real-time advice from a lawyer? Can you connect real time with them?
I think there are already services popping up for that, but to echo what Gary said, I don't agree. I think technology is there and can be wrapped around processes. It can be wrapped around advice to make a lot of the manual work more automated. But I think you're always going to have to rely on the experience, the knowledge of the individual on the other side, and that's, you're paying for that person's interpretation. But I believe technology can be used to great effect to streamline processes and make processes simpler for both lawyer and client. But I don't think technology will completely take over. I think at the end of the day, a client will always feel more comforted by an individual who is interpreting what they see. certain aspects, you could very easily automate the writing of a simple will. It could be done with a few keystrokes. But a more complicated will, for that matter, requires somebody to investigate, to look at. So I think there's always a need for that individual, that lawyer behind the scenes. But I think, yes, technology should be wrapped around a lot of these processes to help from the client's perspective as well as the lawyer's perspective.
Callum, I have a question, because I understand that you simplify huge process of the KYC and anti-money laundering, but at the end you need to fill information, right, in your system. And I heard the other day that 70% of the people is not writing anymore; they are just talking to a device. Are you preparing for the next step? Are you, any of you, in fact, preparing for voice control?
Voice isn't something that would cause us a problem, like the way that if someone wanted to complete forms or provide information in that way, that would be fine. It would be possible. Some of that's based around accessibility and the use of people who might have an impairment, whether it's a screen reader or whether they use technology to interpret what's on the screen. So the way that we've built our technology is in line with some content accessibility guidelines, which mean you can use software. That's in the scenario for someone who might have a disability or an impairment. So if people were going to start to use dictation or, like Alexa or whatever to do things in that way, that would be okay. It's not something like biometrics through voice isn't something that's really a pressing area for us right now. We do have, there's an element of a video capture which does involve biometrics, and you can record someone's voice, and so you feed out a unique code, for example, and it'll pick up the number, and is the number that was given, and it will recognize the character. So that's something that's, the technology for this stuff has been around for quite some time. But the same with many other things like character recognition or other areas. Certainly in the UK at the moment, though, there's a push around the adoption of biometrics and digital identity, which I know Spain are a little bit ahead of us with the use of EIDAS and digital signatures, as well as electronic identity, which the European Union are really pushing on now. They announced maybe 6 months ago that there's going to be a unified approach to digitally proving who you are and using that across countries. It's not going to happen overnight, but there's certainly a lot going on at the moment as far as the adoption of technology and what that's going to mean for law firms, really to stay in touch and to keep in tow with it, because ultimately the client is going to make a decision as to who they want to engage with. And if the law firm that they work with is very old-fashioned, that might, in some scenarios, hold a lot of weight. You want to work with a law firm that's got a great reputation, they've been around for a long time, but you would expect that they've adapted over that period of time, and they now provide a good service, which is digital. So maybe not answering your question directly, but I think there's a lot of change going on at the moment. It's important for law firms to certainly be aware of.
And where do you think it stands, the adoption of legal tech, the UK, compared to other countries in Europe, for example?
I wouldn't think that we're out there blazing a trail. I think in the UK we're probably middle of the road. There will be other countries which are more tech savvy and adopting things faster than the UK. There's certainly a lot of initiatives now to join up things across the UK and initiatives, and the adoption rate is increasing. And there are many law firms who they act across jurisdictions, and they might have offices within the UK, but they're going to be across jurisdictions. So I think we're maybe middle of the road.
Who is winning?
Who is winning? Spain. Viva España. I don't know.
Honestly, not. Well,
good question.
In the middle of the road, but I don't think Spain is ahead. I don't think so. But we tend to think that the grass is greener and the other side of the fence, right?
Yeah, Yeah.
But it's not the case, I think. Okay, and what would be the one thing that you would change in order to accelerate the digital transformation in the UK? Any of you, maybe Gerry?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an awful lot of good stuff. I mean, as Callum said, there's a lot of good stuff happening in the UK, quite frankly. But what would I change to accelerate it? There are a number of sandbox projects that are really good. I mean, the FCA has a good one, Innovation UK has a good one, but I think there are far too many exciting technologies that just don't get there, because you get this classic chicken and egg problem. You get somebody that's developed a really good concept, a really good technology, but they can't get it in anywhere to test it. So their problem is the time they go to their first potential client, the person says, who else is using the product? Where have you tested it? And they can't say, sorry, well, we're working up to that. So if I could change one thing, it would certainly be within the legal community. It would be to try to get law firms to embrace like domestic sandbox projects for themselves, to take a department within the firm that they're particularly strong in or have an interest in, and try and incubate a technology project within the law firm. So it's definitely, to me, there's a lot of good tech out there. There's a lot of wonderful young developers out there. You just got to give them a bit of a chance, really.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And do you think investment could also help? Is the investment?
I mean, there's
the investors focused on the legal tech right now?
Listen, you know, it's easy to say, but you know, the fintech sector generally is awash with investment money at the minute for the right idea. But the single biggest barrier to that project being able to get that funding is to be able to say we've tested it. We've taken it, we've tried it, we've run it in a firm, we've kicked the wheels, we found out what was wrong with it, and we fixed it, and we think we've made it better. At that point, the investment tap is definitely open in the UK, very significantly open, but it's just getting that beyond the concept stage to having had a sort of a proof of value, a proof of product pilot.
Mm-hmm. But that looks to me like taking the risk out of the equation. So investment should be risky at some point, right?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of super schemes within the UK that make that type of investing very tax advantageous for somebody that's considering whether it's SEIS or EIS relief. There are various schemes that you can avail of. And yes, I mean, we have been through not so long ago a round of seed funding. We got our seed funding because we were able to say, we've tested this platform in a firm with real live data, with real proper clients. And that's the single biggest block to getting forward.
Anyone else had a recent financing round?
Yeah, we're doing some just now. And I agree with everything that Gary has said, that it's challenging in the beginning. And, you know, once you've got, I think to a certain point, law firms are risk averse and they are conservative by nature. Like, you know, they are paid to give people advice to avoid risk. Like, not all the time, obviously there's different aspects to the profession, but generally if someone who's in a senior IT or risk or compliance or governance role is given an opportunity to say, you know, will you take this on and try it? There's not many drivers there for them to take that risk and make the change. Now there are maybe IT directors or innovation hubs within some law firms who want to do that, and that's might be quite early stage. Some of the, you know, Magic Circle firms or even Silver Circle have that. So there's maybe a bit of a change where they will invest a couple of €100,000 or the equivalent, maybe up to $1 million. But there's not a huge appetite very early on. And I think what we've found is, you know, growing a sustainable business or evidencing that you can grow a business and do that sustainably has been important. So some of the stuff you'll see the West Coast of the US is in the West Coast of the US. And if you're not there, then those rules don't quite apply and the multiples don't apply to the same extent. But within the legal profession, there are some examples over there which have raised tens of millions or hundreds of millions. Disco is probably the one that springs to mind, that have gone off and taken significant funding, and they're a case management or a practice management system. There's obviously a huge opportunity, a huge market to go out there and win, but it is difficult early on for businesses to get that initial traction and get the evidence from law firms to say, yeah, we do have an appetite for this, and there is a real pain point that you're solving. So it can be challenging, and I think it comes back to, can you win those first clients, and can you evidence that you can scale it? Do the unit economics add up? Like all of the stuff that you would see in many other sectors, but just in legal, if you can crack it and you can get adoption, then they're very loyal. It's a great market to be in, because once a solicitor, a law firm, whether it's a sole practitioner, a high street firm, or a multinational firm, once they've made the investment in time to get you through the procurement process, they're very unlikely to ditch you, because they're going to stay.
Yeah, I agree. Time flies. We have reached the last 10 minutes for Q&A. But before, I would like to thank the British Embassy in Madrid, or in Spain. Thank you very much, Raquel and Sam, for making this happen. So let's go. We have a couple of questions here. I saw one very interesting, which there's a university student that mentions that the legal tech, law tech, is not taught in university. And do you think it should be? It should be one of the important things to learn at the university?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's really important. The amount of times I think a few of us around this table have heard, well, that's the way we've always done it, has been wheeled out so many times, and they learn from the people above, and it just seems to be this pattern emerging. But I think bringing that in at an education level is a great idea. I know Charlotta, she alluded to it earlier on, but yeah, I think it should be included.
You need to get your I'm ignorant about who, the Spanish Law Society or Bar Association, but their education department should be working with the universities and the providers to make sure that happens. Ours certainly does, to the extent that we can influence that. But they've been very open in Scotland we actually just had 2 roundtables in the spring to discuss joint roundtables with law firms, the providers from the universities and ourselves, and some tech companies, to discuss what are the needs, what's realistic for the universities to deliver. So again, if you go on to those pages that I've listed, you can actually read the comments and the outcomes from those roundtables. So even if that's helpful, I guess you could use it for lobbying your law society out there, perhaps.
But how far do we have to, or the education needs to go? Do you think lawyers need to be trained to code, for example?
No. So I think they need to understand that coding can be used to solve problems. It's more about the way of thinking than being able to do it themselves. They don't have to be techies, but they need to understand the impact of technology. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's coding is very complex as it is law. I wouldn't recommend anyone to start coding, but at least maybe the fundamentals. That's exactly what you were saying. Might be interesting. Anyone here has a law degree and knows how to code?
We've just taken on a young graduate who went through their degree and then the diploma, and they went into private practice, and they're now a young engineer. She joined us a month ago, and there was another who joined not in an engineering role, but came from having completing a legal education. So quite interesting, but 2 very recent examples.
Do you value for the talent on your company that they have this law degree? Because I'm seeing many lawyers transitioning into other fields. One of them, legal tech, of course. Do you see there's something valuable?
We've seemed to have attracted people who have come from university and they don't want to go into the idea of a junior solicitor or paralegal and work your way up, and they've come to us instead. But it's certainly not a prerequisite. Sorry, Molly, I think I cut across you and I started to answer.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I was agreeing. Yeah. I can speak from experience that I done my undergraduate in law, and I also was introduced to legal tech and Juralio in my university degree, and it did catch my attention, and it changed my career path for the better, I would say. So yeah, I think with coding, I don't think it's not necessary, especially for lawyers, but I think just having that diversity of thought within any sector is a great advantage, because right now I get to work with people who have specialities in every area, and it really opens your mind to how different people work, and it then translates into what you're developing and how you can make their lives easier as well. So if you want to code, I'd say you can have a shot at it, but just learning any sort of skill just gives you that diversity to see how other people think. So yeah.
Right. There's another question. Angels mentions here, do you find on this sector in the UK, most investors are law firms or specialized VCs on legal tech?
I'll have a run at that one. No, definitely not law firm. Not that, that's not the way they're set up, that they're not investment houses per se. So I would be shocked I'm somewhat jealous maybe if somebody did manage to persuade a law firm to be their investor, but no, certainly within the UK, the real money at the moment is within we call it the more global fintech sector, taking in all of the sort of the sub-tech sectors. It's very much a hedge fund investment house play at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I forgot to mention, if I encourage the audience, if they have any bilateral activity between the UK and Spain, you have in the chat the contacts for Raquel and Samantha. They are really helpful.
We had an example of that to the contrary, where in Scotland it's really popular for angel syndicates or high net worth people to come together in a small group and invest, maybe up to 500k or £1 million. Is really popular in Scotland, not so much in England and Wales. It's more individuals and funds, larger scale investment early on, but in Scotland, you can fund the business up to about maybe £1 million via syndicates. And one example we had was a client who is a law firm who came in and invested, which was really, it was a big surprise for us that some of the partners in the firm decided to put some money together and think about how they were going to invest, and they came along and made a small investment. So we try to encourage that with clients. It's definitely not the norm, and I completely agree with you, Gerry. It's maybe a bit odd, but I think it's a model that could well work, and thinking about how you're thinking about a strategic investment. If you're going to work with a firm and develop it and you think that there's scope, how might you help them engage in the market and really develop? And then making the decision to put in a small investment was really useful from a kind of validation perspective, to say that they had done their diligence and they thought it was a good idea.
Great. Interesting model. Anyways, your client to invest in you, it's I think the best indicator that your business is really good. Thank you very much to everyone. We reached the time, unfortunately. Thank you all for coming here. Thank you for the team of Amiqus. Maybe if you could write your website on the chat for everyone to have a look at it. Really interesting project. Thank you, Charlotta, as well, for you being here and your presentation on an overview of the legal tech status in the UK. Thank you everyone for this roundtable at the Global Legal Tech Hub, and until the next one. If you have any more questions, put it there here. Maybe our participants can answer those later. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.